Time to queue up for a random show. Now, what role should I select? Bleeding heart casual appeasing crybaby podcaster. No, there's far too many of those already. That would unbalance the group. Blizzard fanboy. What use are they in my group? All they do is take all the loot and whine all the time. No, I think I will give that a miss. Ah, yes, here we go. Unstoppably arrogant British monstrosity. Perfect. Now let's see what show we get. God, I hope it's not another Essence of RP. Never anything good in that. Ah, sweet. Here we go.
And so, it begins. Dark were the skies, and chill was the wind, as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. The date today is the 18th of December, 2009. It is 8 p.m. British Standard Time, and I don't care what crazy time, or how you're feeling today, or how the weather is in your ridiculous country. Because all that really matters right now is that it's Blue Please on WoW Radio, and you will be listening to 90 minutes of me. That's basically it. If you've never heard this show before, well, there you go, in a nutshell. 4, maybe 5 years of shows, you listen to me for 90 minutes. If you don't like it, go elsewhere. It's as simple as that. You should be able to handle that, I think. We shall see. What have I got coming up for you in the show today? Many things. So, I heard there was a patch out. And it has numerous changes, including a new icon for Mage Armour. Very important. And yeah, that's it, actually, come to think of it. It was, I don't know, it seemed a little bit underwhelming, honestly, for a major patch. The Mage Armour icon was nice, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty cool with it. I didn't really like the last one. I mean, they'd had it in there for about 2 months, hadn't changed it. It was getting a bit stale, so I felt it was important both for balance and the morale of the mage as a whole to change that icon over. So I'm glad that they've done that, so that's very, very good. Big thumbs up there for Blizzard, although I'm not entirely sure that that's enough content for the entire show. So, if they wouldn't mind releasing another patch within the next, say, 15 minutes, so that I've got something to say, well, that would be great. In the meantime, though, we shall do the show about Mage Armour. You know, the sad thing is, some people probably believe that. Ugh. 3.3, folks. Ice Crown, and many, many other things. That's going to be the order of the day. Lots of things to talk about. And of course, your chance to contribute to the show, the illusion of choice. Bang. Crash. Wallop. You can probably hear that from my headphones. That was really loud. I'm partially deaf now. You can tell I haven't been on the air for a few weeks. All my settings are wrong. My glass is too loud. It's too close. It is within proximity of the microphone. That would be terrible. Dangerous, folks. Very dangerous. You don't want to be near virtual glass, or real glass, in fact, shattering like that. Both could be equally lethal. So what have I been up to? Well, you know that guild I mentioned like 2 months ago? Yeah, I actually managed to form it. And we're doing very well so far. Very pleased with the current progress of Dark with the Skies on Mazrigo, which, yes, is full, so don't apply. We've had a couple of people do that already. It is full. It's only a 10-man guild. We are filled to capacity at this point, and then some. Yeah, it's been pretty enjoyable, to be honest. I wasn't 100% sure that I would adapt well to the 10-man raiding environment, having burnt out so much on 25-man, and just said, I don't want it anymore. That was indeed what triggered me quitting WoW several months ago. It got to the point where we were running Old WoW and stuff like that. I quit before 3.2, and I was sick of it. I was so sick of trying to achieve hard modes and having one guy screw it up. It's like, hey, let's roll the dice and see which of these 25 people are going to screw it up this time. It was kind of depressing, honestly. And it drove me away from the game. And 3.2 didn't provide anything worthwhile for me to come back for, so I stuck around and went elsewhere. Played a little bit of Dungeons & Dragons Online. Went back to PlanetSide for a little while, things like that. 3.3 comes around, I think, hey, let's make a 10-man guild. And after a couple of months, we finally got it sorted out, and we went and did our first raid on Saturday. We got free badges from Patchwork, which wasn't exactly enjoyable, but we killed them in under 2 minutes, which, not bad for a 10-man guild that is not that well geared. A lot of our guys also quit around that era, so we're looking at people in 10-man Old War gear, bit of knacks, maybe a couple of pieces of tier 9 they've grabbed from badges. But yeah, that was good. And then we went and did TOC, and blitzed it, which, again, was quite impressive, considering that 80% of us hadn't been there. We had, like, 2 guys who'd been in TOC before. Everyone else, well, they just hadn't. So we went through there, had a couple of false starts on the Jawmanga worms. Yes.
Not 1, but 2 Jawmanga worms.
And once we killed those, we steamrolled the entire place up to an Uberak with no wipes, wiped once on an Uberak, and then killed him. Now, this may not seem all that impressive to a lot of you. Hey, it's just the 10-man normal mode, right? But it was good for a first raid, and I was very happy with that. And then we went to do some Old War Hards on the Monday, and we killed Obituary, 10-man, which was pretty fun, and did Heartbreaker, which is significantly less fun than I remember. Having said that, they did nerf it into the ground, and at the moment we're working on I Choose You Steelbreaker. And it's our intention to go through all of Old War and get the Herald of the Titans title, which is beating Algernon with level 226 gear or below. So we're all building sets of 226, and for ICC we're just using our full gear stuff from TOC and things like that. The idea really of this entire guild was to get a challenge out of the raiding game, so the way we figured to do that was not to overgear the encounters. So doing Obituary with guys who were basically wearing Nax gear and Old War gear, i.e. level appropriate, was pretty awesome. Although I heard they nerfed it quite a bit by scaling the vehicles up a little bit too much with your item level, which kind of sucks. One way or the other, though, Obituary is a good fight, relatively challenging, and I had a good laugh with it. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, going pretty well. We did also go into ICC. I will talk about that later. That will be in the next segment. I'll give you my full breakdown of Ice Crown so far. And that's been it. So, without further ado, it is time for this.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it's mail time. Time where we read the mail. We do have a couple of emails. Obviously, since we only just threw the show back on the air, not too many. But it'll do. It'll keep us going for the time being. A lot of illusion of choice, so if you do want to email in for that, it's themurloc@gmail.com if you want to pick the last topic of the show. Now, let's have a look. Got one here. It's from Demargus, and he says this. Hey, TB, greetings from one of your possibly quite small German audience. We've got a few Germans. We've got a lot of Swedes, actually. Loads of Swedes. Like, the Swedes are like the second biggest demographic outside of the USA. So yeah, shout out to Sweden. In case you're not going to talk that much about it during the show, I'd like to hear your 2 cents concerning the new legendary axe, Shadow Morn. Is it okay to do, once again, a legendary 4-strength melees, or should there be more than one? Is it too easy to get? Is it possibly overpowered? Well, for one thing, legendaries are always overpowered, otherwise there wouldn't be legendaries. That's kind of the point. Unless they have some bizarrely, really, really crazy effect, they're just going to end up being more powerful. That's the whole point. Is it too easy to get? Maybe. It's not as ridiculous as, say, Thunder Fury, where you were just relying on random drops. But then again, it's not as easy to get as the Warglaives, where all you need to do is kill a boss and they might drop. So at least there's a quest involved with it. I can't say that I'm 100% certain as to what that quest entails, and as to how hard it is. I heard that it's not all that hard, not as hard as some of the other stuff, like, say, a Tiesh and things like that. But yes, it's going to end up being overpowered. That's the point. Is it okay to do a legendary for strength melees? I don't keep count. To me, legendaries are just items that get thrown in when they feel like it, or when they want to build hype for a particular piece of content. Since I've never gone after a legendary, I was raiding Nax in the Atiesh era, but I wasn't on the DKP list for Atiesh, so it didn't really matter. No one in our guild ended up getting it anyway. So, I've never felt the legendary fever, as it were. I've never really felt the need to go after it. And as a raider in a 10-man guild, we don't get legendaries, so why would I care? As to whether or not 10-man guilds should get legendaries of some description, I don't know. I assume the reason they don't allow that, because, let's face it, the hard modes in 10-man content are sometimes harder, and a lot of them are pretty much equal. They can do a lot with 10-man hard mods that they can't necessarily do with 25, simply because you can tune the content so if one guy goes down, that's it. Now, of course, you can do that in 25 as well, but it's a little bit more difficult. It's like, how can I tune it in a way that's going to work where if one guy goes down, we lose? I mean, you could use a gimmick mechanic, like, say, Archimon, whereby if someone dies, Archimon does something really nasty to the raid. But aside from that, balancing an encounter where you just don't have the DPS or you don't have the healing if you're one man down from 25 is really hard. Now, it's really difficult from a design perspective. 10 man, it's a lot easier. If one DPS goes down out of 5, say you've got 2 tanks, 3 healers, 5 DPS, which is a pretty common setup for a lot of the content, then, yeah, that's going to make a big difference. That's potentially 20% of your DPS gone. So it's very easy to balance it around that, because you just have the enrage go off, oh look, we don't have the DPS, someone died, that's it. Whereas 25-man scales in a... It's not so much of an exponential manner, but it's certainly not a flat curve all the way up there. You know, it starts to really fly up there in the terms of what you can do in a 25-man group, thanks to all the raid buffs and abilities you have. So yeah, Shadow Morn, can't say I'm too fussed about it. Again, I'm not a melee class, so I don't really care about melee legendaries. It's nice that they're putting legendaries in there. I don't think it should be compulsory to keep dumping legendaries into the game. Particularly this one, which doesn't seem to have a lot of background lore and things behind it. I suppose it maybe does. I know they conjured something up about it being some kind of antithesis of Frostmourne or whatever. But a Tiesh, yeah, we knew about that. Thunder Fury, I don't suppose we knew about that. But it's just like all of the legendaries before that seem to have some kind of meaning. But then we get stuff like Valinar, which doesn't have any lore backing it up, or Shadow Morn, which doesn't really seem to have any lore beyond the stuff that they conjured out of thin air backing it up. Who knows? Right. Let's get on with it, shall we? This one, coming from Michael Nicholas, he says this: TotalBiscuit, I was curious about your thoughts on the fairly recent Corehound pub being given to people who buy or have bought a Blizzard Authenticator. Now, I am pretty sure that they make no money on the Authenticators, but I'm curious as to what you might think about the issue. Whether it's Blizzard trying to spread the news about Authenticators to people who are otherwise on the fence, or simply give a reason to look into them. Interesting. Well, to be honest, yes, I would say that it is blatantly a marketing scheme in order to get people to use authenticators. But it's not a cynical one. Now, Blizzard does make money off the physical authenticators. But there's a lot of authenticators available for either free or next to nothing, as in all of the mobile authenticators. You don't have to have a physical unit. I've got my authenticator right here, and I believe it's about €8 to buy one, and then if I wanted to ship to the UK, it would be another 8. Now, that's overpriced, because these little token things cost next to nothing to make. However, because they have offered the mobile alternative, and on many platforms that's free, then you can, in my opinion, deduce that they're more concerned about account security. Now, you might wonder why, because I'm often very cynical about Blizzard when it comes to cash cows and money grabbing. And indeed, money grubbing, whichever you prefer. Both are good, money grabbing and grubbing. At the same time. I reckon it's more economical to offer the authenticator for free or next to nothing, because it cuts down on the amount of GM time and man hours required to, 1, police hacking and keylogging, and 2, replace gear and fix up characters and revert accounts and all that kind of thing. You gotta wonder really how many accounts get hacked per day, because I'm gonna guess in the thousands at least. That's a lot of work to fix all of those accounts. So if everyone had an authenticator, of course, gold selling dies, because we already know that now the majority of gold is coming from these guys who are hacking accounts and just stripping them of everything they own as opposed to farming. You don't see that many gold farmers these days. There've been a few, especially with the wintergrasp hacking and being able to bug your way under the ground and mine from there. But the majority of the money is coming from hacked accounts. So, if you remove that element, then you also remove the thousands upon thousands of man-hours that you have to pay your GMs and your support staff to rectify this problem. Ergo, you have a situation where you're saving more money, and indeed making more money as a result of lower overheads than you would be from simply selling the authenticators for €8 a pop. The Corehound pup thing raises awareness of it. You've got a situation where a guy in-game who doesn't know about an authenticator will ask, where did you get the pet from? And they say, oh, I got it from the authenticator. What's the authenticator? There you go. You've introduced someone to the concept of account security. Very important. So, yeah, I absolutely 110% support the Corehound pup thing. It's great. I'm not going to use mine because Murky is infinitesimally superior, but it's a great idea, so kudos for that. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I will be back after this break to tell you a little bit about the Ice Crown raids, the pros and cons. Enjoy. You are listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. You are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. Now, before I go on, a brief mention, a brief shout-out as requested. I'm feeling benevolent today. Yes. Harold, are you awesome? No, you are not. You are not awesome. You are pilfering. You are pathetic. You are horrendous. You are begging for shout-outs. And you know what happens when you beg for shout-outs on my show? Ha! Morons! Well, let's get on with it, shall we? Stuff the Murloc back in his box for the time being. May unleash him later, we shall see. Now, so this patch apparently also has raiding in it. I've just been informed this. I'm surprised that nobody told me. Up until now, I was told that all that was in it was a mage icon. So, hey, apparently not. Right. Let's get on with it, shall we? Ice Crown. It's got raiding in it. It's also got Firebands in it, but we'll talking about that a little bit later on in the show. Now, the raid content. I'm going to talk for the next 15 minutes about this. There's way more I can talk about. You can expect this particular raid to feature heavily over the next few shows. I'll be giving you updates as we kill the bosses and telling you about the bosses if you haven't been in there already, and more importantly, analysing the design decisions behind the instance and the continuing changes that are happening. There have already been some changes made, one of which, in fact the main one, I really do not agree with at all. So, Ice Crown is that new raid in Ice Crown, shockingly enough. And it's shockingly grim. Oh yes, it's grim, dark, and indeed dark, grim. Now, there's various issues with this. I doubt I'll have enough time to cover all of them. So, I'm just going to talk about the bosses today. We can talk about the gating on the next show. There's a lot to talk about with the gating. Loads of stuff to talk about. But that can wait. We'll talk about that on the next show. So, let's just talk about the bosses and focus on the actual raid content that we've got going on here. Now, in the release of this particular wing, as they're calling it, of Ice Crown, you have 4 bosses. You've got Lord Marigar, Lady Death Whisper, the Airship Battle, and Deathbringer Sourfang. Those are your 4 bosses. And you've also got quite a bit of trash. And that's actually the first thing I'd like to mention about this. Trash. Oh. I don't get why Blizzard can never seem to strike the right balance in 2 instances in a row. Yeah? You look at Ulduar. Yeah? Ulduar's trash is basically perfect. It's the most perfect trash in terms of how much of it there is, on how much variety of trash there is, and in how difficult it generally is. It's generally pretty interesting. There are exceptions. Say, for instance, the Freya room, even now, is still got way too much trash in it. But generally speaking, the raid is pretty solid in terms of how it's paced. And then you've got heroic TOC, well, just TOC in general, i.e. the Colosseum, the big circle where you fight bosses and get loot. There's no trash in that whatsoever. Now, some people will argue that trash is pointless, but I believe it does serve a purpose. If all you do is fire boss after boss after boss, then you've got an issue where the raid is too short, for one thing. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a dungeon if it doesn't have trash in it. People get annoyed by trash because trash isn't a boss, trash isn't interesting. But I think trash is interesting if done in the correct way. It's got to have enough abilities to make it interesting. It's got to be sufficiently random and not predictable to make sure that you can't just blitz your way through it by AoEing. And it's got to be difficult. Now, the trash in Ice Crown, some of it is quite tricky. Some of it isn't. There are certain... Let me put it this way. There's only one way to say this. There are certain dick moves in the pulls up to Lord Marigar. First dick move. You can see Lord Marigar from the start, and you think, oh great, it's not going to be too much, just a few packs, we get to fight the first boss. Oh no. No. You remember Shattered Halls? You remember how they just kept coming, wave after wave after wave, and just stood there in front of you? Yeah, enjoy that in a raid form. Oh my... I was spitting feathers by the time we got to Lord Marigar. Admittedly, we took a little bit too long, and I think we could clear it. The 10-man version, I think we could clear it to Lord Marigar in half an hour, but that's still half an hour of trash. And always with the boss in sight. It's like you're moving forward a couple of inches. Oh look, new waves! Second dick move. There are random Colossi-style things that are in the walls that spawn at certain points, some of the time when you're fighting. Kind of annoying. You can reset them if you know what you're doing, but I never really like to exploit the trash. It always feels like it shouldn't have been done that way. The first time that popped on us, we ended up with a full pack, which is hard enough to begin with. Then that, and we ended up wiping horribly. Not very pleasant. In terms of the trash itself, there's a good variety of abilities on show, and it's pretty challenging. That's good. That's how trash should be in a tier 10 instance. Is there too much of it? Yes. Undoubtedly. I would think that some of it will get removed from the start, to be quite honest. I think Ulduar had it right, in terms of how much trash there was, and this just doesn't. It's funny, because that's the only bit of the instance so far that suffers from that. The pulls from Marigar to Death Whisper are totally reasonable. That, and you've also got some really nice trash on Death Whisper. It's a lot of fun to do. We actually ended up wiping a couple of times on this single mob, just to add some great, cool abilities, and it did some really nasty stuff. That was good. I had flashbacks of Black Temple there. Trash that can kill you. What a shocker. You can't AoE it. Oh no. That was good. The trash on the way to the airship battle, it's fine. The trash on the way to the airship battle is sort of a mixture of normal trash and the kind of thing that you would expect to find in, say, the Faction Champions battle. You've got themed mobs that all do abilities that you expect to find in PvP. So that's kind of nifty. It's not hard, though, by any stretch. It's like, hey, counterspell the healer, then nuke them. That's really all there is to it. There's not a lot there. It's a good amount, and it's pretty interesting. And there's no trash in between Deathbringer Saurfang and the airship battle. So that's the whole wing in terms of trash. Now let's have a look at the bosses. You've got Lord Marigar. He's the first guy. There's a few things that I really like about this fight. The first thing is, it's a throwback encounter. As in, it seems to be deliberately designed to give a lot of nostalgia to old guard raiders. Because all of the mechanics are basically stolen from TBC. And a little bit from AQ40 as well. This guy is a mixture of Leothorus and Agentus and a little bit of Archimonde in there. He can do a spinny thing, which kills lots of people if you stand in it. He can do a spiky thing, which will kill somebody if you do not, in fact, get them out of the spike. Now, instead of picking the spike up, you've got to DPS the spike, and you get rid of it. It's actually called Bone Spike Graveyard, which is, in fact, those of you who've played Prototype, a direct reference to Prototype. Same ability, Bone Spike Graveyard. He's also got a little bit of... what's her name? I can never remember it. Why? That stupid boss from Black Temple with the Saber Lash. It's gone out of my head. I have this problem remembering that boss. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's just blanked from my memory now. Possibly. Whatever the case. Yeah, it's the ability taken from there as well. So, pretty solid. I wouldn't call it massively challenging, but it's a good first boss. The problem is that there was something that we really liked in there, and gave us this other idea that it was really a throwback to old-style raids, because it had a untauntable aspect to it. As in, it had aggro management. Crazy! We haven't seen that in ages. So yeah, a bit of aggro management. That was good, but then they removed that, because apparently that was unintended, so they made him tauntable again. So no aggro management! Right, okay. Why? Why nerf the first boss like that? Why teach people bad habits again? I don't get it. Hey, you brought back a boss where you have to manage your threat. And indeed, that's actually a bit of a theme. You've got to do that in Death Whisper as well. So, why suddenly say, okay, here's the I win button, you can just taunt it? I remember a lot of bosses being untauntable, and yes, you had to watch your aggro, you had to watch your threat. This is not an encounter that would deliberately, say, get in your way. I mean, Death Whisper has certain aspects regarding managing your threat, but Marigar, it really doesn't. It's not got a mechanic that would disallow having the boss be untauntable. There's nothing that really clashes there. I don't see the problem. We killed him pre-nerf. I'm happy about that. But yeah, pretty solid fight. Again, please stop nerfing the bosses. It's good as it is, Blizz! Get it into your heads. It's the final instance. It's supposed to be hard. Even on normal mode, it's supposed to be pretty challenging. To be honest, though, and in our experience, particularly with Death Whisper, I think that this is going to trip up quite a lot of pugs and scrubs, and I'm fine with that. I am absolutely fine with that. So let's move on to Lady Death Whisper. She's got some great mechanics. In fact, to be honest, I think Lady Death Whisper was the boss we were most impressed with. She's pretty challenging. You've got to really burn her down pretty hard. The first phase involves a mana shield, which you have to get rid of, but she also spawns adds, and these adds are lethal. They are really nasty. She can do all sorts of crazy things with those. And they have various abilities that really shake it up. Say, for instance, you've got guys with Magic Reflect, Magic Resistance. You've got the ability to reanimate these ads into ones that are way more powerful. Well, that's very nice as well. There's some spell stealing in there, which I pretty much approve of as a mage. Dark Empowerment, which causes area damage with spells. All manner of things. It's nice to have a fight again where you have to manage ads and also have to manage the boss as well. Think of Kel'Thuzad, but back when Kel'Thuzad wasn't nerfed into the ground, when those ads were actually challenging. Whereas now, and indeed at the start of Wrath, it was a complete walk in the park. This is a lot better. This is way better designed in terms of the way that the ads work and they function and go after the raid. So yeah, that's very nice indeed. And the second phase is pretty challenging. You've got stacking threat generation reduction debuff. Again, gotta manage your aggro. Please don't nerf that. Please. It's nice to have to manage aggro again. That's an old school raiding skill that should be back in World of Warcraft, and I hope that that is a harbinger of what's going to be coming for us in Cataclysm. I really do. There is no threat reset in the transition between Phase 1 and Phase 2. So all of that threat that you've been gathering while DPSing the hell out of her, yeah, about that. Watch out for it. It's going to be interesting indeed. It's nice. It's a lot of fun. Probably my favourite boss in there. Now, a brief mention of the gunship battle before we go to the break. It's the gimmick battle, let's be honest here. Does it have a place? Yes. Is it fun as hell? Yes. Is it a total gimmick and way too easy, at least on 10-man? Yes, it is. But it's got jetpacks, so I can basically forgive everything. No, seriously, I can. I can forgive absolutely everything. There's actually a very nifty mechanic in there as well that caught us out the first time. As we went in there without really any idea about the strategy, you know, and a vague overview, and we jumped over and did some stuff on the other thing, and then we suddenly realized that the enemy boss was killing us all. We're like, well, how do we deal with this? And the answer was right under our noses. You're not supposed to stay on the ship very long. You get over there, kill the mage, and then jetpack back to your airship before the stacking damage buff on Muradin will kill you all. That's neat. Very neat. I think the entire fight is really neat. It's a great use of mechanics, turrets. It's great fun, but again, it is quite easy. Now, in terms of the difficulty, well, again, we did it on 10-man normals. So I'm expecting the 10-man hards to be a lot harder. But hey, we're going to have to wait like 3 months for that. So it's not like I can judge it on there. Sourfang's supposed to be a bit of a jump in difficulty. We had a little bit of a try on him. He seems pretty interesting. I'll be able to report back to you on that because we're trying him on Saturday. So I can talk about that on next week's show. Except there won't be one next week, 'cause it's Christmas. It'll be the New Year's show I'll talk about that on. Overall, though, a good solid start. I wouldn't call it the saviour of raiding and a grand return to the old ways. There are some green shoots, let's just say. Some really nicely designed encounters. It's not perfect. It's flawed, but it's pretty good. So we'll see how it goes. If it gets a lot better after the first swing, then I'll be very, very, very happy indeed. In terms of the gating, I'm not going to talk about that until next show. There's a lot to say on that. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I will be right back after the break to tell you a little bit about looking for group. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. Yeah. It's Jazz Club here on WoW Radio. Nice. Let's talk what I do. It's how I'm used. It's how you like it. If you are not already in our IRC channel, you are making a grave error, as per always. # WC Radio, now on irc.quakenet.org. So if you're already on QuakeNet, hey, convenience! On you go. I'd also like to give a special shout-out to the spammer who tried to steal my names on QuakeNet. Indeed, what happened was, we moved over to QuakeNet, and on that day, overnight, my internet does what it usually does and disconnected me. Now, when I came back, my main nicknames, i.e. TotalBiscuit and Total Halibut, were taken and hosted on some random rack space box in no channel. So I was thinking, well, that's kind of lousy. Someone's obviously trying to take the piss. Unpleasant. But I picked another name, and that got taken as well. And I went to the Oppers, and everyone knows on QuakeNet you can't really own a nickname, so the Oppers really couldn't do anything. I don't blame them for that, that's their policy. However, I thought maybe I should have a look through the rules and see whether or not it was possible to find some kind of workaround, some kind of loophole to get rid of this guy. And I found something. Indeed, in the clones segment, you may not have 5 or more clones from the same host mask and IP. Otherwise, you will get G-lined. Now, this guy was literally, I don't know if he was hanging out in the IRC channel or something, stealing every name that I picked. So I'm like, right, okay, how many's he got? He has 4 of my names. So maybe if I pick a new name and then deliberately leave IRC for a few minutes, he'll pick the 5th name and get himself banned. Why, yes, he did get himself banned. Moron. So yes, he managed to get himself G-lined off the network, and now I have a BNC. So, nah. Idiot. Let's be honest. Someone who goes and steals nicknames on IRC, do you really expect them to be the paragon of intelligence? No, you don't. Anyway. /smug mode. Disengaged. Let's get on with some content. Dungeon system. One of the flagship features of this new patch, along with the new icon for Mage Armour. What does it do? It allows you to randomly select a dungeon. It allows you to enter a queue, a cross-faction queue, in fact, to get into that dungeon. And then you go to the dungeon, and you don't have to run there. You get teleported. Mystical, magical, wonderful. So, the question is, what do we think of it? It's been a source of controversy over various aspects of it, and I shall try and cover those in the next 13 or so minutes. Now, first things first, my opinion on it, briefly. Is it one of the best things to ever come into WoW? Yes, actually, it really is. For a variety of reasons. Not least, I might add, the convenience. So, I was never a big heroic runner. At all. It was annoying to me. It irritated me. I didn't hoard badges or anything of the ilk. I just couldn't be bothered. Simple as that. I didn't want to waste the time flying from dungeon to dungeon, getting summoned. It's like, oh, boring, blah, blah, blah. Now, for some reason, and I believe convenience is a big part of this, the dungeon system has got me running 5-mans again. A lot of 5-mans. How many emblems of triumph have I got? How many welfare badges have I got since I came back to WoW? When was it? Last Wednesday? Let's check. Ah, yes. 250. And that's a couple of hours, well, not a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours or so a night when not raiding, just running dungeons. And I keep doing it. It's fun. And there's lots of things for me to get. I got my full tier 9. I might add, I waited until we'd fully cleared TOC until I started buying tier 9. Because you know what? I don't believe I deserve tier 9 unless I've beaten the content that it drops in. Yes, integrity, folks. No hypocrisy from me. So, we did all of these random dungeons, and we continue to do these random dungeons. The variety helps. What doesn't help is the fact that every 2 dungeons seems to be halls of freaking lightning. I don't know why, but we keep getting halls of lightning, and every time it comes up, it's like, no! Oculus, thankfully, hasn't popped too many times for us, but I believe everyone, no doubt, has a instance that just keeps coming up for them. One guy said, oh god, this is the 7th anchor het I've done today. I can imagine that would get very annoying very fast. But it is very handy. Now, and yes, I have done a little bit of pugging. Admittedly, not a lot of it, because I don't need to. I've got a guild. And you can use the random dungeon feature with a guild, and you still get the bonus 2 emblems of triumph. And the 2 emblems of frost from the first one that you do every day. So there's really no need to take a pugger. You get some random 5% buff. Luck of the draw, or whatever they call it, if you take one pug guy, and I believe you also earn points towards some kind of achievement that I don't care about. It's nice that they've thought of that. Because that 5% buff is quite nice in terms of evening things out and giving you a bit of a leg up if you happen to get a guy in your group who's undergeared. So it's not too bad. So overall, I quite like it. But there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this particular system on a variety of different things. Now, the first thing is something I actually encountered yesterday. Now, Ariana, also known as Intricacy, my wife, transferred over to the server to join the guild. And she had only just got to 80. Literally, only just got to 80 on that day. With that character. She's got a bunch of other 80 characters, but she wanted the priest over there. So she did that, and we had a situation whereby she couldn't join any heroics via the dungeon system. Because the heroics have a built-in gear checker. And there are various stages of this gear checker. The heroics have a baseline of gear that you must have in order to join them via the random dungeon system. I must stress, you can go into them normally. No problem at all. But if you use the random dungeon system, there is a check for gear. And because, of course, she was in questing greens with a few blues, it triggered the check. So we're like, well, that kind of sucks. And now I can understand this entirely, and I fully support this in the context of completely random pugs. Yeah? Or at least semi-random pugs. I don't support it in the concept of an entire guild group. I don't know if they just either didn't put the check in there because they forgot, or because they actually want you to pug. I don't know. I know this makes pugging significantly more attractive, but the system also works for guild groups, and indeed works better, because, of course, guild groups are going to have better DPS, they're going to tank better, they're going to heal better, they're going to be more efficient, they're going to be better in terms of the communication. So, for us as a guild, it really works. That one thing I would like to see changed. Just because it's inconvenient. If my guild chooses to run someone who's undergeared through heroics, that is our choice. It's not our choice if there are other non-guildies in the group. They shouldn't be burdened down by our person who maybe doesn't heal well enough, or doesn't tank well enough, or doesn't do enough DPS because they are undergeared. But if it's a guild-only group, we deserve to be able to make that choice for ourselves. And we shouldn't have to go through the inconvenience of running to an instance. That said, it's nowhere near as bad as a lot of people have been making it out to be. Indeed, we were able to unlock all of the heroics except for the 3 Ice Crown ones for Jen, simply by running Forge of Souls normal and Pit of Sauron normal. That got her a couple of upgrades which were enough to push it past that, what is obviously a very low threshold in order to get into random heroics. Now, you see I mentioned the 3 ICC instances. Well, those 5-mans actually have a additional limit. As in, you have to have a lot higher gear level in order to get into them. Mainly because they're a lot harder. Specifically, the Halls of Reflection. That's way, way harder, but we'll be talking about that in detail later on, so I won't go too far into it. However, there's been a bunch of whining on the forums about it. Loads of it. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get gear? Yeah. Ugh, cry. The way that you always used to get gear. I remember a time back in TBC when you didn't hit 80 and jump straight into heroics, because you couldn't. You got your ass handed to you in that gear. You couldn't do it. Heroics were a lot harder back then. Nowhere near as much so now. You know, heroic Black Morass. Try that when you've just got up to 80. Try that without decent gear in your questing greens. Watch them wipe on it hard. Yeah, I remember those days. Those were the good days. But I'll give out one of my rare tips. If you have this issue, just go into normal ICC instances. Just do the quest line. Go into normal TOC. That drops like item level 200 plus gear. It's really easy to get past that threshold. And they whine and they bitch and they complain. The fact of the matter is, these people are incredibly entitled. Honestly. I deserve to get into this because It's like, well, what's your reason? Come on, stop sniveling and tell me your reason. I pay my subscription. That's your only reason? That is your only reason for wanting to get into these things. You're in greens. Questing greens. No enchants. No gems. You're not even the right spec. You want to be in my group? No way. It simply comes down to this. The enjoyment of 4 and the time of 4 is more valuable than the time of 1. If you've got one undergeared guy, then that guy is most likely going to waste your time. Especially if he simply has obviously not bothered to do anything with his gear. It's like you haven't even bought vendor gems. All your gem slots are empty. No enchants, not even the most basic level of enchants. It's like I saw a warrior. He didn't even bother to have any stats or health on his chest piece, on this blue chest piece that he had. And that warrior actually ended up doing about 600 DPS. We ended up with him in the group. And he was absolutely pathetic. It was 4 of us guildies and then him as a random. It was terrible. It was abysmal. I've never seen anything like it. And that is the greatest insult you can ever give to someone. Wasting their time. So yes, Blizzard has put into place a system where you are not able to waste people's time. And indeed, they allow you to vote kick. So what did we do? Well, we vote kicked him, except for the fact that the vote kick has a cooldown of 15 minutes. You can't be serious. We can finish most of the instances in that time. 15 minutes? We happen to be in Halls of Stone at the time, which does take a little bit longer than that, especially when you've got a DPS who is doing less DPS than my wand. Ugh, what a waste. We actually let him die and he just sat there screaming for 10 minutes and then we kicked him out. What a waste of space. So that's something that definitely needs to be worked on. I appreciate the fact that the vote kick is there, but it needs to be less loose in terms of the time. You've got to be able to do it within, say, 5 minutes. 5 minutes is enough time to determine whether or not someone is a bloody idiot. Really. It doesn't take a lot of analysis to realise that. Now, of course, there's whining about the vote kick feature as well. Big thread. You shouldn't be able to vote kick. Elitism. Oh, be quiet. Elitism. Elitism is the catch-all phrase these days for this person wants to play better than me. This person does not share my Care Bear, crybaby, bleeding heart attitude that everyone is entitled to come and dance around the freaking maypole and have epics fall from the sky on their heads. That's the kind of person I'm talking about that defends the idea that vote kick should not be in there. Rubbish. It's the same people that defend the idea that there shouldn't be a gear check. Rubbish. There should be both. Both of these things should be in there. I'm glad that they're there. Heck, if it were up to me, I would up the gear check more than it is. Because, hey, we still got that 600 DPS warrior who was standing around for half the blink and run until we kicked him out. Now, I understand the plight of people who are undergeared and really want to get started, but I'm sorry. There are other ways of progression. For instance, when Jen got to 80, you know what the first thing I did? I went to the auction house, bought her some Evan Weave gloves and a sash of Jordan to replace those greens. How much? Barely any money whatsoever. Like 400 gold total for these epics. Really easy to get. Couple of item level 200s right there off the bat. All it took was a couple more items. And then she was there. And you know what she went for them? Normals. That's where you go, folks. Normals. ICC normals still drop item level 219. That's what you need. That's all you need. Go do it. Take some responsibility. And maybe Blizzard might want to give them a bit of a prod there. Have a recommendation in there. It's like, you appear to be undergeared. Maybe you should go here. That's actually a thought. Here's an idea for you, Blizzard. You're listening to this. Write this down. Have an in-game recommendation engine that analyzes your gear and suggests a progression path for you. You do that. Have it in-game. I can guarantee it will help. For those who are willing to listen. Those who aren't, well, they're a lost cause anyway. My name is TotalBiscuit. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I'll be right back after the break to tell you about the ICC 5-mans. Some of the best 5-mans ever made? Maybe. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yeah,
pretty quiet on Vent, you know? Kinda laid back.
Oh my god, you noobs! DPS the ends!
Just like to chill out, kick back, relax, raid with my friends. No worries, no stress.
How is that even possible? Are you 7 different shades of stupid? Move out of the fire!
It's important to make sure my orders come through loud and clear. I'm a bit, well, shy. I'm not particularly loud or anything. My last event server was really poor quality.
Tank it, for heaven's sakes! Tank it! How can you be so monumentally freaking terrible?
Then I discovered UGT Ventrilo servers. Amazing quality, great prices, and they're so reliable. Pretty much perfect in every way. I mean, I was a pretty calm guy before, and now I've got even less reasons to worry.
Why? Why do I raid with you people?
Why not get one of your own? UGTservers.com. That's UGTservers.com. You'll be glad that you did. It's really helped me find my zen, you know?
You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. Tons more content to cover, folks, so no point in hanging around. Now, in my quest to gather all badges of triumph ever, and indeed I've started buying PvP gear with it now. Seriously, I've got all of the PvE gear I need. So it's, hey, let's get more gear I don't deserve. Well, all I can say is if the system is there and you do not use it, then you are foolish. Simple as that. Now, ICC, there are 5-man dungeons, and they are rather wonderful. So much that I want to sing. There is a musical theme to at least one of these dungeons, so I feel it is rather appropriate. The Forge of Souls, folks. One of the 3 new 5-man dungeons based out of Icecrown. Best instance ever? Maybe. It's debatable, but let's have a look at it. So the Forge of Souls is part of this 3-dungeon chain that they've got going on in terms of these 5-mans. It's got 2 bosses in it, and it's got a reasonable amount of trash, and it is visually stunning. Looks absolutely fantastic. Really does. Absolutely amazing looking instance. Great stuff. And you go in there and you talk to Lady Sylvanas, and if you're playing the wrong faction, you talk to Jaina Proudmoore. And you get a quest and you go through there and there's 2 bosses to kill. It is completely and totally linear. Not going to dispute that. And the first boss goes by the name of Bronjam. Yes, Bronjam. Oh, wow. So Bronjam, of course, is an anagram for James Brown. And if you look at this guy's loot table on Wowhead, then you will see Popper's brand new bag and Papa's brand new knife and all sorts of things like that. He is the godfather of souls. Just for that fight alone, Blizzard gets so much happiness and joy from my horrible, withered, cynical soul, you have no idea. It's nice not to take things too seriously every now and again. Bronjam's a good example of this. Now, if you turn the music up on Bronjam, you will hear a song called The Bronze Jam, which is what it's called. It's a funky guitar piece with a bit of synth in there while you're fighting this boss. Is it appropriate to the instance? No, it isn't. Is it appropriate to the boss? Well, technically, I suppose. But it's not the threatening vibe that you get from everything else. It's funky and awesome and fun. As is that boss. Now, it brings up the question as to whether or not you've got to be really serious in terms of the bosses and the environment that you're in order to evoke the sense of awe, the sense of wonder, and in some cases the suspense of an instance fight. I don't think you have to all the time. I think there is room for humour. We've seen it before. Look at Mimmeron. Look at XT002. 2 relatively funny fights in a nasty dungeon in terms of the lore backing it up and the fact that you've got a god of death, sort of very Cthulhu-style god of death. That's serious stuff. The themes of madness and insanity overriding everything. But does that mean there's no room for humour? No. ICC, foreboding, dangerous. One of the most dangerous instances in the entire game in terms of 5-mans. Does that mean that we can't have fun in it? No. Now, the last boss in that goes by the name of the Devourer of Souls. And that while it's certainly not a funny boss, it kind of is, honestly, because the voice acting is so appallingly bad. You dare look upon the host of souls, I will devour you all! It's horrendous. It's like some awful Monty Python-esque thing. It's weird. We always laugh when he starts that. You remember the time when you laughed at XT002 when he first pulled him? New toys for me? Well, you get the same kind of effect with the host of souls! He seems terrified. That's the funny thing about it. He's like, please don't hurt me, I am the devourer of souls! Oh, dear. I did laugh so freaking hard. But it's a great fight in terms of mechanics. It's got Mirrored Soul, which can kill people, which is ideal because it allows us to kill Kirov, our combat rogue. Or Svetsluka, our shaman, who does a good job of dying anyway, but never mind. It's great. If you don't like someone and they've got Mirrored Soul, you can kill them! Probably not the best idea. Never mind. He's also got the ability to raise ghosts from the ground, and they'll chase you and do damage. On normal mode, they're not particularly threatening, but on heroic, they can do quite a bit. When he can also jump at people, he does this pounce kind of thing, which leaves a void zone on the floor, which he initially covers, so you gotta be very quick to get out of that. He's also got a Cthulhu-style I-beam, which is very dangerous, will kill you instantly. It's a really good fight, really well designed, lots of cool mechanics to learn, relatively challenging for a 5-man boss, at least the first few times that you do. Very good indeed. Now, the cool thing about this is that this is something that I think is a really nice innovation. Really, really nice innovation. The 3 instances are chained together in a way that we've never really seen before. As in, the portal to the next one is inside the first one. And the first time you go through, you have to run it, because that's the only way you get access. It's like an attunement, but way less annoying. Now, these 3 instances are tied together in terms of cinematics, scripted encounters, and lore. You are battling your way through to the final instance, which is the Halls of Reflection. And you are accompanied along the way by Sylvanas, fully voice-acted, or by Jaina if you're playing the wrong faction. And it gets progressively harder, and you feel like you are making your way towards a goal. And everything is tied together with a narrative, everything's tied together with a story. That is the best thing ever in terms of 5-man dungeons. Honestly. It is perfect. It is wonderful. I've never seen anything like it. Whoever came up with that idea deserves a medal, because as far as I'm concerned, ICC single-handedly gets me interested in 5-man heroic content again. Because the rest of it in Wrath was garbage, including that horrible circular arena 15-minute piece of crap. No, this is good stuff. I like the storytelling. I like the scripted events. Now, I reckon that they took a few pages out of the Book of Left 4 Dead here. Left 4 Dead, a Valve game, you should be familiar with it. They have events in there called crescendos, finales, very musical terms there. Various events that are basically gauntlet events and panic events, things like that. Now, the idea of those events in that game is to evoke a sense of urgency, a sense of fear, tension, that kind of thing. That's something that none of the Wrath dungeons up until now have had. Now, these dungeons use that mechanic very liberally in terms of the Pit of Sauron and the Halls of Reflection, the second and third instances that you'll go into in Icecrown. Now, there's a gauntlet event in Pit of Sauron, which involves you running through a cave. And when you are in this cave, there are Hodir-style cave-ins that are being caused by the Scourge Lord, whatever his face is, Scourge Lord Tyrannus, and his big flappy drake thing, Brimefang. So he'll be collapsing this on, and you've got to move, because otherwise the chances are you will die. So it's a sense of urgency. And the best thing about it is there's really dramatic music going on in the background that kicks in as soon as you start it. So it's like, oh, better get going, better get going. It feels a bit like Left 4 Dead in that sentence, and it works very well. But the best one, the absolute best, unequivocally fantastic section of all of these instances is the final section of Halls of Reflection. It's a chase scene. And in this chase scene, Arthas comes after you. And you and Sylvanas are literally running for your lives. Because Arthas is right freaking behind you. Do you fight Arthas? No, you can't fight Arthas in a 5-man. He'll kill you. And he will. He throws up blocks of ice to block your way, and you get a bunch of ads that come in, and you've got to kill them in order to give Sylvanas enough time to collapse the ice blocky thing so you can run up the next bit. And it gets progressively harder, and the tension is palpable, because they managed to make the Lich King scary. Really. He is intimidating as hell. He doesn't even care. You know, he doesn't give a damn. He's just walking along, striding along, strolling along. He's like, you know, you can imagine he's got his iPod under that Nezul helmet of his. You know, might be listening to a bit of smooth jazz. And he's just taking it slow. But he is intimidating. He's got this giant aura of frost and death swirling around him. He's got his frostmourne in his hand, and he's going, and you know for a fact that you can't stop him. He is coming for you. He is coming progressively closer and closer and closer, and you're panicking, and it's like, quick, got it, run, 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 run. It's like, oh, we're behind, quick. Oh, but the next wave's harder. Oh, God, oh, God. It's terrifying. In combination as well with some great music. Really dramatic, tension-building music. And you know what? That's not something that's really been done before in WoW. It's been done in a lot of other games. You think of loads of games where the game has evoked fear, tension, suspense, all manner of different things. But WoW, not really. It's never really done that. It's evoked a sense of wonder a lot of the time, but tension, fear? No, not really. Well, this, I think, is the first time we genuinely felt some suspense and tension, and even a bit of fear there. Because, yeah, Arthas is intimidating. And that's how he's supposed to be. He's not some boss that you can farm for loot. And indeed you can't right now. He is taking an active role in trying to kill as many of you as possible, and you can't kill him back, because you know what? He's too powerful for your scrub ass. Deal with it. All you can do is run. That is one of the scariest things. You can't fight him. And that makes him all the more intimidating. It's great. That chase scene is... Will I go as far as to say probably the best thing I've ever seen in an instance ever? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, what's there to compare it to? I mean, we've got some great raid encounters, I suppose. That's fine. There's some amazing stuff. But in terms of 5-man content, there's been nothing like that. Nothing has been up to that standard. You know, there's some pretty cool moments in some of the Wrath 5-mans. Like, the first time you went to Utgard Keep, and where you saw the flames, you were like, whoa, that's awesome. It was okay, it was cool, it was nifty. The Nexus, when you first saw that was very beautiful. Some very cool things in there, too. A couple of 5-man bosses that were a lot of fun. But that Arthas chase is something else. It really is. The entire set of instances is something else entirely. They have remembered what it was that used to make the old 5-mans great. For one thing, they put quests in there. But this is not some namby-pamby collect 5 bare asses quest. This is a quest chain that threads through and ties together the entire set of instances in a cohesive, meaningful, and sensible narrative. It tells a story. And I don't think the Wrath instances have done a good job of that. Of telling a story at all. There are some in TBC and there are some in Vanilla that have told a story in some way or another. Like, say, the progression through Scarlet Monastery. There's a story to be had there. It's kind of vague, but there seems to be a story there. Deadmines. There's a bit of a story there, too. But nothing has come close to this. This is explicit story. It's like, here is the story. You can follow it. And here's the cutscenes. And all of this other stuff. The voice acting. Events that are leading up to this point, this culmination, in this final dynamic and dramatic escape from the Lich King. That, I felt awe. I will happily say that. I felt the sense of wonder there. It came back. Indeed, the sense of wonder came back in a lot of those areas in those instances. Both bosses in Forge of Souls, and indeed going into Forge of Souls for the first time. A lot of the events in Pit of Sauron. Uncompromising cutscenes of just violence, really. To the point where you see, oh god, what the hell just happened, you know? It's quite grim. in places, but there's also quite a lot of good humour in it too. There's a great balance being struck there, and the use of mechanics is great. I will say, the one complaint I do have is the fact that the 2/3 of the halls of reflection are pretty boring, because they're waves. Ooh, waves. The bosses are kind of cool, but the waves are, they're just dull. They're challenging, don't get me wrong, and I'm happy to see some challenging 5-mans again, but at the end of the day, it's still just waves, and waves get irritating. Overall, though, so far, I'm liking the 5-mans better than I am the raid dungeon. I'm sure there's a lot of good content to come in ICC, but these 5-mans are just absolutely incredible. They really are. I'm still not bored of Forge of Souls. I've done it at least 20 times now. Just going in there and randoming it up, got it about 5 times in one day when I was just randoming it. It's great fun. And the way that they've told the story, it's like the game has matured a little bit in terms of how it tells a story. It's not shoving a story down your throat, it's something that makes sense. You're taking part in what appears to be some kind of grand adventure. You're on an important mission, you feel like you're really a part of it, you're interacting with the major lore characters, and you know what it is? I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's Wrathgate done right. That's what it is. The involvement of the major lore characters and the big cool stuff is done in the right way. Wrathgate did it wrong. This does it right. More of that, please. If all of the Cataclysm instances are like that, I will be in heaven. Such a great set. My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I'll be back after the break with the illusion of choice. In the meantime, this is Evergrey with Broken Wings. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. You like WoW Radio shows and want to show your support for the hosts and reward them for their time spent? Well, WoW Radio show tip jars are now open for a variety of shows, so you can give to the hosts of the shows that you love. You can throw your spare change in the Blue Please tip jar if you so choose by PayPal to TotalBiscuit@gmail.com. Keep the Murloc from your door. Thank you for your continued support. Yes, indeed, folks, the illusion of choice. The opportunity to pick the last topic of the show. We have a few. Well, let's see if there's any good ones. Okay. Right, pro tip. If you're going to send in illusion of choices, what's the best platform for playing WoW? Mac, laptops, desktops is not an illusion of choice. Because it's a one-word answer. One-word answer. I shouldn't even have to tell you. Let's see what else we got. Gold selling. God, no. No! Stop asking those questions. The worst thing. The end of WoW. There's an interesting one. Let's do that one. Hey, TB, this one, Recoil. The end of WoW. What do you think would happen when Blizzard just stops WoW and all the servers go offline forever? Millions of players realize that they've spent hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars to stare at the computer screen and become unsociable in real life. Well, that's a loaded question to begin with. Let's be honest. For one thing, if they've got any bloody sense, they'll realise that they were playing a game in order to enjoy themselves, and not for the end result of having virtual items. If you place value on these virtual items to the point where you get really, really, really upset if in X number of years the servers finally go offline, whenever that is, and I don't think that's going to be for a very long time, I'll give WoW a decade. EverQuest is still running, for God's sake. So, that's been out for what, a decade plus? Ultima Online shards are still running. Mods are still running after 15 plus years. It's not gonna go anywhere. The only way they're gonna kill WoW is if they make WoW 2. Honestly, and even then, EverQuest 2 and EverQuest 1 are still running. Why would you shut it down as long as it's profitable? We've got MMOs that are running now on a single server, with player bases of 1,000. They're still running, they're still profitable. PlanetSide still runs, for God's sake. That's maybe got, what, 200, 300 active players? It's still running. So, that's one thing, it's probably never going to happen. If it does happen, it's going to happen so far along the line The people that originally started playing WoW, I'm not going to be playing WoW in 20 years when it goes offline. No! Certainly friggin' hope not. God, I would have graduated past that by then. Now, if you really, really think that it becomes an issue of, oh, the servers are offline now, oh look, I just wasted my life. Well, okay, fine. You could go along the I wasted my life route, but whose fault is that? If you spent a ton of time on something that you found to be unsocial, that you found to be a complete waste of time, then why the hell did you do it to begin with? Last time I checked, it was your choice, folks. It's your choice to choose to play the game for as much as you did. Well, the point of the matter is, you should be having fun. And if you're not having fun, then why play? The acquirement of virtual items? Why? What purpose do they serve? At the end of the day, they're simply going to vanish. It might be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But eventually, they're going to vanish. And indeed, eventually, for God's sake, when Cataclysm comes around, they're not going to matter anyway. This happens every expansion. You know? Oh, I've been acquiring items. Oh, look, the items that I've acquired are now basically useless. Does that mean everyone goes and rages about it? Well, some people do, but they're in the tiny vocal minority. Hey, my raid gear is not viable anymore. Well, there's a shocker. Does that upset me? No, because gear's a means to an end. The end is to beat fights with the gear and have fun, whether or not it be PvP or PvE, whichever you choose. Maybe both. At the end of the day, the game's supposed to be fun. Say, I quit for like 4 months. And I quit and missed out on all of 3.2. There was gear for me there. Really easy gear. I could have got loads of things. I could have kept running Old War with my guild. The gear was right there. I had the DKP. I passed up hundreds upon hundreds of DKP. Threw it away. Why? Because the game wasn't fun anymore. Would I have had fun if I was getting items? No. Items are nice. Don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean that the acquiring of items is all that keeps you playing the game. I know it is for some people, but I would like to think those people are in the minority. And that the content is fun enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And for the majority of Wrath, it hasn't been. Old War was, for a while. TOC came out, turned it out to be a pile of garbage, and having now played it, I could safely say that is the case. Hopefully the hard modes will be a little bit more interesting. So in terms of the design, in terms of the way that it was put together, there's nothing there. Really, it's a phoned-in instance. The new Onyxia, total joke, no enjoyment to be had there either. And we go back to saying, oh, well, was Onyxia hard to begin with? It was, initially, when no one knew anything about raiding, but you're talking about hard in terms of a relative scale. We're not talking about an objective way of looking at it. You can't objectively quantify what is hard and what is not. It's all relative to the skill level of the player base that's attempting it at the time. If all of your player base knows nothing about raiding, then yes, Onyxia is hard. Yet so's Molten Core. It's not now. It's an entirely subjective thing. But they brought Onyxia back, declawed Onyxia, and hey, it's a waste of space. But there's items, guys! Let's get items! Yeah, I could go in there and get items, but it's no fun. I don't want to do that. What's the point? If it's not a fun encounter, then why do it? If it's not challenging, why do it? If it's not part of the progress, why do it? And the same thing applies to anyone that says, oh, well, at the end of WoW, everything will be for nothing. Welcome to every game ever made. Welcome to every piece of entertainment ever made. You watch a movie, you get to the end of a movie. Oh no! The time was for nothing. No, it wasn't. The time was spent enjoying yourself. And if it's thousands of hours in WoW, or it's a couple of hours watching a movie, or if it's 10 hours reading a book, or if it's 45 minutes watching a television program, whatever. It's all about entertainment. You don't view it as a waste of time because you want to be entertained. It's as simple as that. So, the doomsaying can go to hell, quite frankly. And if you're not having fun in WoW, I encourage you to not play it. Because why? Why would you stay subscribed to a game and indeed try to play a game just for the sake of going through the motions? It's the same people that go on and do daily quests every day and don't do anything else. Why do you do that? Why do you subject yourself to mundane labour? Why do you do that in your off time? There's tons of things you can do that are way more fun. It's the same reason that we don't, as a guild now, care about gear. What we care about is the challenges. We want to do hard modes. We could, if we want to, totally skip Old War. We could gear up entirely in TOC and ICC. Because, hey, loads of gear. Even hard mode Old War gear is not, at least in terms of most of the items, item level 232. The 232 stuff is generally the weapons. Everything else is 219 to 226. Loads of higher item level gear to be had from patch vendors, from TOC, heck, from even the new 5-mans. Does that matter to us? No, because we want to do the hard content. We want to get those hard modes down. Because why? They're fun. We went into Old War, we had a blast. The most fun I've had in Old War in ages. Did I get loot? No. Did anyone else get loot? No. I think we DE'd everything. Admittedly, we had some pretty bad drops, but whatever. I think maybe one piece. One piece. We DE'd everything else. Did it matter? No. Everyone had a riot of a time. It was great. We went up against challenging encounters. Great raid design. The gear is a means to an end, folks. And if you place so much value on your virtual character decked out in its virtual, non-existent items, then I strongly suggest you re-examine your perspective on the game. Honestly. You wouldn't do this in any other game. I don't cry because I get to the end of, say, Dragon Age Origins. Oh no, my geared up and leveled characters are for naught! I've beaten the game! It's the end! Oh no! That doesn't matter. I had 60 great hours playing that game. So why does it apply to MMOs and not every other game ever? Why can't we just apply the majority principle of you play the game, you have fun, then you put it down and play something else, and you don't pine and mourn the loss of something that doesn't actually have any intrinsic value? I don't get it. I don't think that way. I don't want to meet people that think that way, because they're scary. Ladies and gentlemen, my name has been TotalBiscuit. You have been listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. The next show will be on New Year's Day. New Please, folks. And I wish all of you a very, very Merry Christmas. However, we have shout-outs to go. So send them into themurloc@gmail.com or get on IRC, # WC Radio, on irc.quakenet.org. Or click the chat button at the top of the screen on WCRadio.com. Alternatively, you can tweet me. And I've got a couple of special shout-outs to go out first. First shout-outs go out to the Monster with 21 Faces. And what's that? Nomenclatura. Yes, both SA Goons listen to the show. Hi to all of you. A shout also goes to Chaos Smurf. Congratulations to him for getting his dream job at PC Gamer. Well done. I look forward to trolling his pieces as much as he attempts to troll mine. Only I have many more years of experience of taking the piss. But no, seriously, well done. Well done, that man. Congratulations to him. Applause, please. Applause in the IRC channel for our very own Chaos Smurf and his journalistic stylings. Go on. Yes, polite clapping. Right. More shoutouts. Send them in to me, and I shall do them. Shout out here to Sikt on Thunderhorn EU. It's my birthday. Congratulations. You don't get a birthday song, though. But you can have it. Kraken Zero, shout down. Ooh. Shout down to the 2 other DPS in my Heroic Forge of Souls group. It's doing sub 800 DPS. Ew. How horrendously horrible. A shout out to Arcanist Belt. There was once such a guild. That's from Alif. There was, indeed. There was once an Arcanist Belt. Can I get a shout out to my guild on Master Go EU for killing Deathbringer Saurfang and achieving 3 out of 4 glory in the 10-man? That's from Nymph. Yes, you can indeed. First time listener, Vampiren. Shout out to Vampiren's girlfriend, Saratar. Lots of love. Yes, I have done a shout out to Chaos Smurf. I should apparently do it in a high-pitched girly voice, which I assume is an attempt to emulate Chaos Smurf. I haven't done this in a while. Shout out to me. I'm published! Yay, congratulations. He's the lead editor of Peggle Monthly, folks. What else have we got? Shout out and happy Christmas to you and my best buddy Looper for always being there for me. Looking forward to New Please next year. Congratulations. That is from Steve's Cadgar. EU. Shout out to X Fantasy on Lightbringer, please. Shout out to Given. Shout out to the Guildies in Misery Business at Balnazar EU for helping me get my Quell de la. Greetings. That's from Rapid Load of Balnazar EU. Yes. Shout out to my Guild Insanity and to me for tuning in live for the first time. That's from National Tile, which I assume is some kind of bathroom flooring company. What else have we got? Shout outs coming in thick and fast, folks. It's like a blizzard, which is quite appropriate. A shout out to the new looking for dungeon system. That's from Ibex5 on Twitter. Shout out to Soliquay, Scary Troll GM of the Shadow Song Enforcers Guild. That's from Cordain. Can I get a shout out to Mike? No, you've already sent that. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. A shout out to Finnish Guild Paragon for TOGC 25 World First. That's from Sixer. A shout out to Shugheart on Frostmane EU. That's from some guy who didn't give his name. And a shout down to the Paladin in Heroic Old Kingdom Pug, wearing a sword and board and attempting to do DPS. A massive 1,000 at best. That was better than the DPS warrior that did 600 with a two-hander. A shout out to Angelo on Defiance EU for being a terrible Paladin, terrible Shaman, and now a terrible Priest. That's from Ter Elite Hacksaw. And a shout out to Kirantor EU. That's from Seraphin. And last, by no means least, a shout out to Eclipse from Homo Rush. Some Chesburger2312. And a special shout out to the total failed spam attempt of the botnet on QuakeNet. Congratulations. You, as always, failed miserably. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. You have been listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. It feels so good to be back. I will be back in the new year with Nubcake News, with Ask the Murloc, and all that good stuff that you have been expecting. Assuming I don't have loads of content to fill. We shall see. We'll try and shoehorn it in there. Send in your emails to murloc@gmail.com over the next couple of weeks. I will try and read them on the show. Thank you, as always, for listening and for being so generous with the tip jar. If you do want to throw in a couple of shekels, as Octil and Hordak call them, into the tip jar, it's the PayPal address, totalbiscuit@gmail.com. Entirely optional, much appreciated. I really hope that everyone here has an absolutely fantastic Christmas and an amazing new year. Enjoy your WoW, folks. I will be back same time in 2010 on the 1st of January, bringing in the new year with cynicism, ire, hatred, and anger. What a perfect combo. Good night. You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. You can listen live Fridays, 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. EST with a lively musical pre-show kicking off 1 hour beforehand. We appreciate your time and would like to invite you to be part of our large forum community at forums.wcradio.com. Please take a couple of minutes of your time to rate and review our shows using iTunes. Thank you for listening.